All right, so welcome to this week's Roundtable. This is the weekly appliance repair roundtable. We hold it every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you have to hop out or if you're catching the recording, you can find this on YouTube or in the Facebook comments for the thread that I post every week. So before I hit record, TK and I were starting to talk about, this is a topic that has to do with either a multi-tech company or a company that has multiple people. And I would say that it's applicable for those that are a single person operation and want to hire more people so they're not the only person. So if you're the only person in the company, it's just you have everything in your head or you have everything within your whatever system you have. If it's in your head, notes, digital system, whatever. Now, TK was just talking about how every Thursday he has a team meeting of sorts where you're able to communicate with the various team members to identify things that might have been missed or things that could be improved, things that could be done differently. Now, TK, I'm curious how you go about this. Do you guys, at the end of every day, are you guys kind of flagging tickets or flagging items and then you will bring them all up on Thursdays? Or are you setting aside a big chunk of time throughout at one point in the week where you're going to review everything to earmark or flag what needs to be discussed in your Thursday meetings? How are you identifying the holes that you need to talk about plugging with your team on your Thursday meetings?
We literally start, so our pay period is Friday to Thursday. So today my technician got paid from last Friday to today. We started with his jobs from Friday and went all the way to today and went through every single one and made sure every single one was taken care of, billed out, and everything.
Now, when do you go through all of those tickets? Do you do it on the Thursday meeting?
Yep, that's what the Thursday meeting is. And the reason we do it that way is we don't want to do it for him. We want to do it with him so that 6 months from now, hopefully not even 6 months from now, 2 months from now, he's doing it on his own and helping to teach the next guy how to do it.
Okay, so I understand. So it's like when that Thursday meeting starts, you literally have all of his tickets or repair jobs up and you guys together just kind of go through them one by one. They take a look at it. All right, this one's good. This one's good. Okay, yeah, I see here that something's missing, and then you talk about it.
Right. So on our software, we're using Workies now. When you pull up the jobs, there's something called Quick View, and it gives you a quick view of the job. It gives you all the attachments, what the job was, any tags, the technician that ran it, and we can filter it by technician. So we filter out mine and Austin's jobs and just show Tori his jobs. And then we go through and quick view each one, see what the total is, make sure an invoice was done, and then he'll have the checks for that week, and we're like, make sure it got paid, mark it paid, make sure it got marked paid. All the little things that he should be doing on his own, we're having to train him to do, because it's just one of those things. Like, that's what we didn't do with the last guy. That's what bit us in the ass. So I'm trying to stay on top of it.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm going to kind of translate this a little bit to, I guess, in a way to try to make it relatable to anybody's business, is there's certain standard operating procedures, whether you think of them as a standard operating procedure or not. There are certain standard operating procedures, and you're going through all the tickets of your individual staff. So this can be considered a weekly, staff member review meeting. You're going through all the tickets and you're trying to identify if certain pieces of those standard operating procedures are missing. Like, for example, is there a ticket that doesn't have an invoice attached to it, or doesn't have a certain tag? I know that in the system that we manage for our clients, one of them is House Call Pro, and the way that House Call Pro works is they have tags. So you'll tag and again, the standards for this particular company is every job gets tagged as COD or warranty, type of appliance, is it a diagnosis, is it a return trip, is it a recall, et cetera, et cetera. So we might review all those tickets for the last week and quickly see, hey, are there tags missing on these tickets? And I'm hearing from you that you have him collect checks, and then you'll use that to kind of counter cross check to make sure that everything's paid, essentially. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
So
Bobby,
my
what do you
software,
do to like, how frequently do you do your own internal checks, and
Yeah,
what are you looking at?
my software won't, you have to have a claim status in order to be able to process that ticket. I mean, so like initially the ticket always is going to read incomplete, and it's going to be red on my daily sheet. When that ticket is processed, whether or not it's waiting on parts, completed or quoted or invoiced if it was billed, however that ticket gets done, the only way to actually complete that ticket is by identifying its claim status. So then at the end of the week, you can go through and look at every single one, say, okay, these ones were part orders, these ones were completed day one. But the way my system works, that status has to be done. Sorry if it's noisy right here, guys, but I got some ribeyes on right now, so trying to multitask.
Where's mine?
It's that little one right there.
Nah, I want the big one on the left.
Our tickets are kind of similar, where they're either opened or closed, and you can't close them unless you have basically money at the end. Otherwise, our accountant gets pretty upset, and if you're closing a ticket up for $0, there better be a pretty good reason for it. Otherwise, the other status is need for work. So if it needs more work, our system will do what we call whip alerts. I don't know if that's what everybody calls them, but these whip alerts come in every, I don't know, however many days you set. I think ours is set for like 6 days. If it's been open for 6 days and nothing has been done, the office is trying to figure out where the part is, why it isn't completed out, what needs to be done, does the part need to still be ordered. So we don't let things sit around for too long. If we don't have a part in 6 days, we're trying to figure out what's going on.
Cool. And Andrew, do you recall what software do you guys use?
So on my end, it's called SD Mobile, and on the office's end, they call it Service Desk. So it's Service Desk Mobile on my side, and Service Desk on, that's what we've been using for 20 years, give or take.
Cool.
So Service Desk is also Rossware for everybody
Correct.
else.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
I like this. So just kind of bring things back, and then also let EJ know, because I want EJ to chime in. We're talking about periodic reviews. Imagine essentially weekly reviews where a company, we're talking about how each of these companies will look at the jobs that have happened in that last week and be able to identify which ones might be missing. This helps highlight just gaps in the process. First TK was sharing his process, and his software that he uses is WorkEase. Then Bobby was talking about how his software, which is RazorSync, has the different statuses. And then Andrew was talking about Rossware, again, looking at the status. Now, EJ, you use House Call Pro, so if you don't mind sharing, what do you look at on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or any other kind of periodic basis, and how do you go about using your software or using your processes to identify gaps that might need to be filled, or identify things that might have been overlooked through that last week, or however many, whatever the time frame is of running those calls?
Yeah, are you talking about like return trips, stuff like that, or just making sure the jobs are completed?
So this all started out with TK has a new hire, or he has a tech that is missing things. He's missing pieces of the standard operating procedure. And
even though it's spelled out, in clear writing.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yes.
I have the paper. EJ's seen it. He helped me work on it.
So whether it's a one truck operation that is trying to just stay on top of themselves, or whether it is a multi-truck operation where a manager is needing to make sure that their their staff are fulfilling the roles of their position in every facet. That's really what we're talking about. Not so much analyzing how many return trips do you have, and that gets into optimizing the business. We're just kind of focusing on identifying the holes so that they can be addressed and filled.
Yeah. So the reason I asked about the return trip, because that was one of my big holes for myself. I'm just hired my first tech. He's not even officially started, but he's run with me 3 days. So this is a good topic for me as well. So I use House Call Pro, and one thing I like that keeps me straight is each job on the schedule is a bright color. Like my color is red. All my jobs are red. And as I start one, it gets a pink line on the left side of it that shows that it's in progress. So it's kind of like a flag to show that it's not completed. Something hasn't been done. Like I haven't either clicked finish or haven't taken a payment or whatever. And when it's all done, the job turns a light gray color. But about the return trips for parts installs, before I use that system, I would sometimes order a part and forget where I ordered it for. I would forget. And then like 2 weeks came by a couple times that a customer called and said, "Hey, what's up with my part?" And I'm, "Oh, that's what it was." Or I forgot to order it. So that kind of stuff is important too. And to answer that question, in house call, as I am taking the payment before I order the part in front of the customer, I add a second trip, and I flag it as a return trip for part install, unscheduled. And because it's unscheduled, it goes to a spot on the homepage that says needs attention, and it basically holds all of the unfinished needs attention type jobs right there in one place. But as far as what TK was talking about, I did help him kind of fine tune what he did. And I actually need to do that myself because I've been talking to my new hire throughout this week. And I need to finalize some procedures for that tech because he's going to do things slightly different than what I allow myself to do. And we have slightly different responsibilities as well. Where he won't order parts, I'm going to order parts. So he needs to request the part and add the segment for the return trip, and I'm going to need a system for me to order the part. And, I think for starting off, I would believe daily, I would check the completion of his jobs to make sure everything's filled out correctly. And no more frequent than a weekly, or not any longer than weekly, because one, paying commission like I'm going to, I got to review it all anyways to determine how much money has come in for that week and how much he's going to get. But we need to make sure that the jobs are completed. I don't know if I answered your question or added a couple others, but that's what I got out of it.
No, you're good.
All right. Can I chime in on that?
Please do.
All right. So how I do mine is you invoice, and when you put on each one of the part orders, you put on there for the reference, the your reference number. And on there, I'll either put the ticket number or I will put the customer's name. And then you do the same thing with your software when you're ordering parts. Now, when I just hired my second technician, and I already have my parts division set up for him. So for his part division, I had, and I set it up where he can place part orders on there, but he can't actually order it. He can just put it into the shopping cart. And by doing it this way, number one, I can pull up his list and see everything that he's ordered. Number two, I can go through and look at each one of the jobs when the parts come in and say, okay, this part came in, it's assigned to that ticket. I can look it right up, invoices right there. It's very, clear and identifiable on whose part that belongs to and how to get them back into the schedule. Because of timelines, parts back ordering, these parts came in, which route we're doing, are we going to go east or west that day? I don't pre-schedule my calls until those parts come in. That way I can set up the best route for me for that day. If I pre-scheduled one 8 days from today, then that kind of might prohibit my drive time because I might have all calls in the other area. I can see where it could work around it, where you can build around calls like that, but sometimes it doesn't really work that way. But for me, to set them up by the actual tickets and when the parts arrive, that's what works best for me.
Your scheduling software will only let you schedule in certain area codes on certain days. So if you look forward and you see that you are on the west side this day, then you'll know because it won't let you schedule those, certain zip codes in that area. I don't know if yours does that or not, but ours does.
Now, Andrew, is that preset where you actually have to program into Rossware, zip codes 1 through 5 on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and zip codes, 6 through 10 on Tuesdays, Thursdays? Or is it smart in the sense where it looks at what's already scheduled on the day and then maybe you set a radius or something like that?
Well, it's not smart at first. You definitely have to set it up where, say, for instance, Wednesdays, I'm going to go to a certain area, and they will limit my calls to only be able to schedule in that area. So if I'm in a zip code, say zip code 451 on Monday, and I try to reschedule that 451 job, it will X out or not allow me to schedule for Wednesday because I'm in a different area that day.
Now, are there dispatchers, are there like humans, dispatchers on the other end that are making these changes? Or are you saying that your software is essentially automatically doing that based on how it's programmed?
Because we set it to do that, it automatically does that in the future. So 2 years ago, when we decided that on Wednesday we're going to a different city, we programmed that into the computer and said, only allow for the tech to be able to schedule. Now, the office can schedule whatever they want. They have overriding powers. But me on my side, in the field, I'm not allowed to put a call on. And the reason why that's important is because I can call a customer, I'm there on Monday, hey, I can get back Thursday, I'm booked up for Wednesday already. And then that way, they're on the schedule quick. As long as I have the part in my hand, I can go back and do the job. They know right now, and it's a lot easier to get into a house when the customer knows about it 3 days in advance rather than 1 day in advance.
Sure.
So if I have the part in hand and call them and say, hey, that's tomorrow, get that knocked out, they might push it off another 3 days. And
Ross?
Doesn't always happen like that, but it's better to be able to do it immediately when possible, is what I'm getting at.
Rossware is one of the best softwares out there. I've used it and I've used it for 2 different companies. And yes, you can set that thing up. The inventory on Rossware is amazing. It really is. It can have everything set there, priced and lined up and everything. You can restrict zip codes. You can do admin passwords to override. I mean, everything he's talking about is true. The only thing that if you have to have a team of 4 working for a month to set up Rossware to where it's functional. Rossware is not a turnkey system. So being a one-man tech, you are not going to be able to run with Rossware effectively. because of how much it is involved in actually setting that thing up. Every single part number has to be inventoried and categorized. It is a bear. It really is. And they actually have
That's not
guys.
completely true. The inventory isn't mandatory. That's just something that makes your system even better, by the way. You can do
I'm
parts
sorry.
individually without any struggles. Inventory is a pain in the ass, though.
No. I'm saying you can. You are correct. What I'm saying is the using different types of softwares. Like I've used Workies, I've used Razor, I've used Service Bench, Rossware, SD Mobile. I've also used Nightwolf. One thing that this thing Chesterfield had, but as far as like the servicing, it's setting up that, having all that inventory, setting up your SD mobiles, doing all the networking for it. You actually have to have an independent server, or you have to pay Rossware monthly to uphold your server. It's when I was with my last company that I partnered with, we actually bought the Rossware, and having 3 technicians, we thought we would be able to figure it out because I've actually used that in the past and I was familiar with it. But trying to set that thing up is a monster. The guy that we talked to that said he was going to come out and do it, we had to, fly him out. We had to pay for his hotel, and then he wanted $800 a day, and it would take 3 days. We wouldn't have any technicians running because we'd have to show him how, everything, how to do it. Rossware, if you're a big company, Rossware is amazing. But if you're a single man shop, that's a hard system to try to set up and get launched. It's not something that's just turnkey like Razor or Workies or the other ones that are out there.
EJ had brought something up and Andrew kind of touched on it. I'm curious to hear from the group how each of you, what your logistics look like on return trips, and specifically around the ticketing system and what's communicated, your policies with payments. So scenario is that you go out, you perform your service call diagnostic, you determine that a part needs to be ordered, and you're going to have a return trip. So I guess three pieces to this question, which I think would be helpful to hear from the group. Number one, do you collect the service call fee on that first trip? And how do you how do you not manipulate, but how do you work that into the final ticket after the return trip and the parts install? Number two, do you take a deposit for the part? How much of that, what kind of money do you take for the part? And then number three would be, I guess, tell me a little bit about what the second ticket or that second segment of the ticket looks like, and when it comes to closing that out and taking final payment. This is something that I see a lot of companies, like single person operations, where they're trying to figure this stuff out. They flounder and they kind of just play it off the cuff. So I think this might be helpful to hear what each company is doing, and then also for others that are trying to figure this out.
Doug from
Mine's pretty
Action.
easy.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
No, go ahead, buddy.
Okay, well, mine's easy. We have 8 guys on the road. We're a medium-sized company. Each guy is dispatched their 8 calls. Upon arrival on each call, they diagnose or whatever. There is not always a service call collected, but when there is a service call collected, it's marked on the ticket very clearly. It's kind of a case-by-case thing there. As a policy, we're supposed to. In practice, nobody does. So it's really up to the tech on case-by-case. The second part, the parts ordered. I forgot the question now. What was the second one, Alex?
So what do you do when it comes to collecting for parts?
Yeah, so the job is completed and everything's due at the end for the majority of our tickets. We collect upon completion. And that's, again, case by case. Sometimes you will collect the service call and then collect the remainder. But generally, if it's a $240 repair, you're not collecting the service call and then going back and collecting another $140. You're collecting the entire $240 at the end of the job.
So in that scenario, if I can cut in really fast, in that scenario, what do you guys do once you've ordered the part, you haven't come back to finish the job, and they cancel?
Right.
really, really difficult pain in our ass, but 99% of the time we can collect with a credit card over the phone at time of cancellation. If not, if it's like an email cancellation, we are tracking people down and we collect the majority of them. I'd say at least 75%. I know we don't collect them all because I get in trouble for it once in a while.
Would you prefer to collect that service charge on the first visit? Ronnie?
Okay, so I'm in a different position because I have somebody doing the most of the phone calling for me. If I were a one-man show, I think I'd collect the service call every time I walked in a house.
Right. That's all. That's all.
I
meant.
wouldn't want to have to fuck with this.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to
So-
have my own company, because I don't want to have to deal with all that nonsense.
So we use Rossware, but I think back to when we used paperwork, just receipts. So I've only known it one way. You go in, you diagnose the repair, you quote them the repair price. If they choose to go ahead and do the repair, we're collecting 50% of the repair, the whole job. If they cancel, then we refund them everything but the service fee. If they change their mind, unless it's Viking or Sub-Zero and we bought it from Sub-Zero, they're going to charge us a restocking fee. We charge a restocking fee. Most important thing is to have that all documented and that your technicians say those things. But I mean, I think you got to get, we actually get 75% now because we've been direct shipping for about 10 years to the customer. And in that paperwork that the customer sees, we tell them it's important they give us a call when the part arrives. If you don't, or you choose to install the part yourself, then we consider the job paid in full and there is no warranty on the repair or the service fee. That happens a little bit, but like Andrew, I was just talking to a lawyer. How do I get all these people who declined paying a service fee because they're underwhelmed by what we did? Because they're disappointed that they called us in general and probably wish they can turn back time. So what they try to do is come up with some lame excuse for justifying not paying that diagnostic fee. He didn't take it apart. He didn't use any tools. He had to call somebody. His shirt was unbuttoned. So now I was just talking to my office staff today and they're like, I got an idea. Let's just collect the service fee over the phone. And I said, I know a lot of guys on Facebook that do that. And I'm sure that they get their fair share of people who go, no, thank you. I'm not interested in working with you guys if I have to pay up front the service fee. So I'm just saying you should always collect your service fee if you don't do a repair. And if you order something, you better get a deposit on it.
So go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead, ask your question. I was just going to go next.
We do it. I like the way y'all do it. We do it a little different. We have 4 major cities, and in 3 of the major cities, we collect the service call when we arrive at the home. That service call, we let the customer know up front. My office girls make it known that the service call is due upon diagnostics. So as soon as we diagnose the unit, let them know what's going on. We give them a full detailed report of what it needs and what it's going to take to fix it. Or if we can't supply that at that time, we'll tell them the girls are going to give them a call, let them know, but we've diagnosed the unit. We let them know what's wrong with it. We collect the service call at that time. And the girls, when they schedule the call, they let them know the service call is due at the time of service, the time we diagnose the call. So the customer is already well aware. Once we get there, we diagnose the unit, that service call is due. Once the call is turned over to my office, my parts department look up the parts, set up the retail prices, call the customer and say, okay, the job is going to cost this much. If you want to go forward with it, the parts are due now. And then when we return to do the job, all you owe is the labor. A lot of questions that we get from the customer is that, do we have to pay the service call twice when we come back? And the way I put it, because they're looking at it the way some companies do it, which is great, but your markup is in the parts, not in the labor, is we tell them, look, we don't charge another service call to come back. We just charge you the labor to finish the job. And in their minds, they recognize that, okay, I can see that. But as soon as they try to think about, oh, is the service call included in the labor, then they're mixing the two. No, the two are different. My diagnostic is different than my labor. My labor is to do the job. My service call is to diagnose the call. That way, if they cancel, we did our part, we diagnosed it, we get our service call, which we know it's probably not a fair shake on our end because we get the short end of the stick, but at least we get our service call out of it. And then, you know, they usually go forward with the labor anyway. It's very rare that they don't. So once they give us the okay, then we go forward with it.
I think we're all the same way here, Jay. Same deal. A service charge, we describe it to the customers when they call, what it entails, and it entails what you do. So you do the same thing as us, Jay. Our CSRs are very clear up front what to expect and what's going to happen. And if you do that, I think it takes away a lot of the problems for sure.
Exactly. I think the only, like y'all were saying earlier, the only pushback is when the tech is very experienced and he knows before he even gets there what's wrong with it. He gets in, he presses a couple of buttons, he puts it in diagnostics, he already knows it's the actuator, he knows what part it is, like in 15 minutes. Then that's when they feel, well, I shouldn't be paying a $95 service call or $140 service call, whatever it is for that area. And then that's when we get a little pushback. And then that's when I explain, it's like going to do different doctors. You got a doctor that knows what he's doing. You got a doctor that doesn't know what he's doing. The doctor that doesn't know what he's doing is going to take a lot longer than the doctor that knows what he's doing. I want to go into a doctor's office and say, and the doctor goes, I know exactly what you need. Here's the medicine. Go get your medicine. See you later. Bye. Or do you want the doctor that's going to spend their 2 hours, make you feel like you've earned your $100 and do that? And when I explain it that way, they understand it. But a lot of customers don't see it that way off the mark. They feel that they got, you know, cheated, which they didn't. They're paying for knowledge, not time.
That's right.
I use
About to
House
start
Call
really
Pro.
on a Whirlpool side by
Sorry.
side. No, that was just my example.
Yeah, go ahead, Freeman.
I use House Call Pro for everything right now. I'm basically a one-man shop, and on those calls where, I mean, and I'm not that experienced, but when I know what it is because I've run into it enough, I'll go get them. I go get them, pull them in the room, and kind of justify, you know, what I'm doing, and I'll even slow type on my computer and enter everything just to kind of, I don't want to say burn time, but just to kind of make it worthwhile, you know, even if I don't do that much. Dismembering of it. You know, I went on a dryer the other day. The customer said it wouldn't turn, you know, took the top off and there's no belt. Well, we're kind of done here at the moment, but I made sure that I really went over stuff with them and just kind of made it worthwhile for them to stand there, you know, so they didn't think like, oh, the guy was here 10 minutes and ran out the door. But the thing I like about House Call Pro too, using it, is for those people that haven't paid, because I'm in a resort area. We have a lot of second homes, and I have some people that owe me some money. I can just send reminders through House Call. I can just every 30 days or whatever, just, you know, we send another reminder, and so far it's been okay. We haven't gotten stiffed too much, thankfully.
EJ, were you talking about the lawyer that you talked to? What was the resolution in there? What did he say that what could be done with the guys that don't pay the service call or feel like they're making up an excuse not to pay the service call?
Yeah, that was Doug.
Doug, what did the lawyer say on that?
Yeah. For many years, we had a collection agency, and you know, you have to pay a chunk of your money to get it. When Obama came into office, and he changed a lot of the credit card guidelines, one of the things that happened was, and I'm pretty sure this is truth, so if someone says I'm wrong, that's fine. I apologize. That unless we have their social
one call per day, you can get sued.
Exactly. What if you don't have someone's social security number, then you really can't you can't seek a credit collections agency. They can't go after the credit rating of your customer. So that takes away a lot of the power of the customer. And so my two companies we used, both of them closed and retired, like during that administration when those laws changed. So in the meantime, we've came up with 3 different letters, one getting a little sterner than others. And, you know, lastly, threatening to take them to court or something. The reality is, and then my accounting firm that pays our bills, one of the employees there said, we'll send a letter with our letterhead, which makes it look like a collections agency. And they started to do that. And we started getting some of those, you know, $129.95 service fees. People started paying us. Now they're probably not happy, but they're paying us. but I talked to a lawyer friend and she defends people who get ripped off by businesses. And she really warned me to say that we are, flirting with disaster by falsely threatening and, not properly doing it. And basically said, you're pretty much, it's not worth it going to small claims court for a service fee. And really her advice to me was try to get $50, $40, $100, that kind of thing. So that's my plan for the rest of 21 and moving forward, to get out of my billing files all these people that we've been sending letters to and trying to posture to get them to pay. I'm going to just ask them to pay something and we'll stop sending letters. But yeah, house calls, we can pretty much kiss them goodbye, I think, if we don't get them.
The ones that you sent letters to, did you ever get any retaliation as far as reviews
Yeah.
posting on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, reviews?
Yeah, same. Or
One. Because if they call in, then I get on the phone with them myself. And I just real heart to heart with them, hey, I agree to disagree with you, but I have the recording of the phone call from my CSR. She said you were going to pay a service fee for him to diagnose it, and I wish that I picked up the phone. I wish that I could have told you that's a front bearing on your washer, but I don't have that ability to be there and answer every phone call like that. And I can turn them around. But if you start sending letters out, I bet you'll get 10, 20% of your money back. You just we had to start drafting them. One is a friendly reminder. A second one is that we're going to send you to collections. A third one, please call immediately. And then after that, it just sat in our AR due file. So like $12,000 is what I have sitting in the AR due file for lost collections.
What kind of time
Gotcha.
frame is on that 12 grand? Like how far back?
2 years, 2.5 years. So the letters have to go out like every 2-3 weeks so that you can get through that really quickly. Customers will start to forget about you if you send them one a month. So we bumped it up to like 2 to 3 weeks to do it. But I think my lawyer friend has great advice. By the way, I hate bartering. I like to tell people exactly what's happening up front. If we aren't clear and concise, if I listen to the recording and my CSR jumped off script, forgot information, I'm sorry, ma'am, sir. You know what? I apologize. You're a teaching moment for my CSR. And that I don't even count that money. The 10 to 12 is what I say is we deserved it and we lost it.
I think that's a
letter
good.
that you're thinking about changing. Strongly worded letter you're thinking about changing over to bartering and asking for a percentage of it. You could call it something like a hardship charity and just say, as long as we take care of this in the next 48 hours, it might be more willing to give you $50. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're going to do you this favor if you don't mind paying 50% in the next 48 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Andrew, but still, I kind of get the gist of what you're saying. And I kind of want to pivot this into a little bit more of a philosophical question for everybody. And it's around like, at what point do you focus your time and your energy on, I used the term a couple weeks ago, at what point do you start focusing your time and your energy on other $1,000 per hour activities? At what point do you throw in the towel and realize that your time is better spent growing the business in other ways, or in other activities? I don't know if anybody has like a personal rule or how you guys think about that. At what point it's time to throw in the towel and shift your gears. But
All right. So for me, I'm not a big company. I don't have multiple techs. I don't have what you guys do and have the demand of the overhead that you guys do. All the CSRs, all the parts managers, things like that. For me, I apply my service call to labor. My labor rates are fixed. If it's a basic, labor, it's $135. If it's a intermediate labor, it's $175. If it's a major labor, it's $250. The service call fee does apply towards that, unit. It is part of it. I do not charge additional. My part markup I don't. Whatever I go by Reliable Parts for their price guide, and I adhere to, you know, that price point. Now, granted, I buy it at wholesale and I sell at retail, but I don't go over retail. If Marcone has it listed for this and Reliable has it listed for that, I stick to Reliable, and I show the customers when I'm in the home. This Samsung, idler pulley. It's a DC 93006348. You know, Reliable has it listed at 5124. That's what I sell it for. My labor is 135. My profit on that call is $165, and I can make it in 20 minutes. And I do 9 to 10 calls a day. I make my profit for that entire day just going in that order and that procedure. So I'm different from you guys. I don't do the same, as some companies that do need to. I mean, they're building. The business owner has to collect his check. The service manager has to collect his check. The parts manager wants his check. The CSR wants her check. Everyone's got their hand into that technician's charge, what he has to make a profit for to be able to support that company. So, I mean, all companies are going to be different as far as policies go and how I charge. First trip only. If I'm there and I have to order parts, every single call, you pay the service call fee. I don't have to worry about refunds that way. I don't have to worry about trying to chase after somebody. You pay the service call on the day of the trip. That gets inputted into the ticket and comes off the total. If I come back and I'm confused on what happened, I can go back to the original ticket. Everything's documented. So, I mean, I'm simplified, and it's effective. When I hire on my second technician, everything's simplified. It's easy for him to go on. I don't have to worry about him, price gouging my customers or going and trying to figure out how to mark something up and what to tell a customer. Everything is in a set category and easy to choose from. It's transparent.
So I have slightly different than most of you guys. I'm a one-man show, just hired my second guy, so still technically one man. I collect the whole payment on the first trip, no matter what. So if it's service call only, I get the payment. If I fix it on the first trip, I get the payment at the end of the visit. If I have to order a part, I get the payment at the end of that visit and book the second trip. I'm not chasing service calls. Occasionally, if it comes down to it and, we've gone through the process of recalls, I do have to give a refund. Maybe once or twice a month at worst, generally, if that. But I'm ready for it. What happened to me was when I first started, I was low in funds, so I needed the payment up front anyways, and to keep it clean and easy, I took the entire payment. As I've grown, I don't need the customer's money to buy the parts now. It just works. So I've had some people, pretty much every person that says, "Can I pay when you get back?" I don't get paid. So if they don't pay while I'm there, okay, I'll take the $75 service charge is what mine is. You call in the payment, then we'll order the part. We don't order parts because I can buy the part, but I don't like to order parts that are just going to sit around and they ain't been paid for. I've done it a few times, and it seems like almost every time I do that, they don't pay for the part. They don't pay for me to come back, or they cancel the job. I've got probably 5 different door gaskets or seals that I'll never use because it's very difficult for me to send stuff back. There's no part supplier around, so I'm eating it until I decide to sell it. So I'll open myself up. What do you guys think? Am I stupid?
No, you're doing good. You're doing good. The less stock you can keep, the better, brother.
Yeah.
Not to embarrass you, EJ, but I mean, you act like you say stuff, your numbers. You're a very accurate guy, very thorough. Like you've been doing this for 25 years. Because I think you nailed everything you just said straight away. Those who say they'll pay you when they come back, yeah, your percentage is right on. That's it. And you don't want to get stuck with the parts. I mean, you're gonna have to share with us at some point your weakness, my friend.
I'm not a great tech. That's my weakness.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm an okay tech, but I'm really good with customers.
Gotcha.
So to answer the other part of the question, sometimes, maybe once a month, every other month, I get that one customer that refuses to pay the whole amount. If I'm in their house and they are putting up a little bit of a fight, that's when I resort back to something like what you guys do. I do service charge, 100% of the parts, and then labor paid at the end of the trip, at the end of the job. At that point, you're looking at $75, $125 for most jobs. They're pretty much already there. Like we're talking about almost 75% of the job on most of them. So I'm like, look, just make it easy. You know, I can do it. You know, but if they push back twice, I say, okay, here's my deal. I'll take service charge, parts. That's all.
Mic drop. I'm curious. I'm curious. How do you guys like to price your parts? Because if you check one distributor, it's going to show one suggested retail. You check another one, it's going to show a different suggested retail. How do you guys like to price your parts, your retail pricing on parts? And also, I guess a backup kind of follow-up question if needed. How do you deal with customers that might ask questions or give pushback if maybe they go and look it up online?
I do very similar to what Bobby does. I use Tribbles because they're the closest distributor that my customers can go to. I log out of my account, so it shows only the retail price. I add $15 to every retail part. And when I explain that to the customer, if it comes up, I say, here it is. This is what the part costs. I add $15 because I got to get it shipped to me and taxes. So that's what that is. And then I don't use it every time anymore because I got my tiered pricing set up right now. But I do use the blue book if I feel like I might need help selling the job. So I'll show you, here's the blue book. Here's what we are, $25, $50 less. By the way, here's the part. I had 15. This is what I'm making. Otherwise, they what the total job is on the invoice after they pay, unless they ask.
Cool. Yeah, and just to add some context to those that may or may not know, EJ was referencing this is how Bobby does it, this is how EJ does it. We're talking about essentially like single tech operations, smaller businesses where the technicians in the home is pulling out their phone, showing the part, showing the price. I'm curious how some of the larger operations, like Jay, I heard you say something earlier, and I want to say that your company would fall into this. Glenn, I don't know if maybe your company falls into this, but the larger companies where your logistics are one where the technician on the ground is not dealing with the parts. I know Jay mentioned that he has a parts department. I don't know if any others have a situation like that where the person who performed the diagnosis, the person that's in the home, might not be the one that's actually looking up the parts availability and pricing. How do you guys deal with that?
So the way we deal with it is we do probably 80% of our work is high-end, is Viking, Sub-Zero, Thermador, all that good stuff. Our pricing structure is different because you can't charge Sub-Zero pricing to a Samsung customer. You can't charge Sub-Zero pricing to an LG customer. So my parts department has it just like they were saying before in the tiers. and like they were saying before, when you're one man or two man with no overhead, you can charge a lot less than the bigger guys, because the bigger guys have a lot more expenses, especially insurance and all that other good stuff. The bigger you get, the more insurance you have to pay, the bigger your bills get. So we have to add more on the retail price. We add price on that. My battery's about to die. Give me one second, guys. My retail is a lot larger. So we don't show them Marcone, reliable, all that stuff. Our system is set up to where as soon as our retail price is in, we mark it up from there. If it's a LG part, it's 15%. If it's a Sub-Zero Viking, something like that, it's usually about 30%, and we mark it up from there. And of course, it tiers down. So the higher the part is for the price, say a Viking compressor, $500, we don't charge 30%. There's no way you wouldn't survive like that. So that tiers down to 15% or 10% on the compressor, because you're making your profit on it, because your cushion's in there. So it goes back to your system. If your system's set up that way, or if you have a great parts department that knows, okay, this is what's going to sell the job. And what I tell my technicians is that you have to sell the job when you get there. So what I was running into, and as y'all get bigger, you'll see this, when the technician will tell the customer, this is what it's going to need, and the parts department will give you an estimate. Well, what I was getting is a lot of turnaround, and we were just getting service calls. We weren't getting the job repaired. Well, what was happening when I started writing with the technicians and finding out what was going on is the technician wasn't selling the job. So say a Sub-Zero, you would have to do a compressor job, a whole rebuild, compressor, evaporator, heat exchanger, all that good stuff. That's a good $1,500 labor job, because you're going to be there quite a while rebuilding the system. So if the technician didn't sell the job while they were there, and the parts department called them and gave them the bill, they were like, oh no, that's too high. And they would drop the ball for probably about 2 months or a month. When they went to go shopping for that Sub-Zero and they realized that Sub-Zero was $15,000, then they call us back and then say, okay, I'll go with a pair. But there was a lot of back and forth. So what I had my technician start doing is, as I told my techs, roundabout what this job's going to cost. You can't give the customer an exact quote, because of course you don't know. Our parts prices change, so you can't give them this is going to be exact penny. So what I would tell them to do is overshoot it. That way, when the parts department called them with the exact quote, it would be under what the technician said. So let's say, I'm just going to give numbers out here. This is not real world numbers, but just say the job came out to be $2,300, and to do a whole compressor, Sub-Zero, everything. It says, okay, this job is going to cost you $2,300. Okay, but the office is going to call you with an exact estimate. The office calls me, you know what, it's going to be $1,895. They jumped on it in a split second because it was under the 23 that the technician quoted, and it's a done deal. So just as long as your technicians sell the job while it's there, your parts department won't have a problem selling the job to give them the quote. If the technician's not selling the job and they're just leaving the house without reassuring the customer, this is a complete rebuild. You're pretty much getting a new fridge minus the board and the insulation. You got a new fridge. Then you got a problem. And right now it's getting a lot easier to sell these jobs because these products aren't available. Sub-Zero, Thermador, Viking, these products are not readily available. So to go and when they go price these new units, they're waiting 3, 6, 7 months, and those dates keep putting back. They go with the repair. So this is a great time for repair companies, because as you see, it's getting harder and harder to find new products, and now it's getting harder and harder to find parts. So we're having to look at other sources that we have never looked at before to try to get parts. So that's another thing we're running into is part supplies. So.
You are muted, Glenn. Let's try to get you unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we do things sort of similar to the rest of the group. A little bit different though, because as you guys probably know, we have our own in-house system. So what we do is we charge a diagnostic fee up front, depending on the product. So high-end products have a different higher diagnostic than, say, for example, common line or premium. Of course, our CSRs explain everything with a script to our customers. The calls are all recorded. We're all the same that way. When our techs go to the house and we do a diagnostic, we complete the diagnostic for the customer. We give them a diagnostic receipt, and that's paid through the system, Visa or MasterCard, on the spot. Only when it's paid, then the customer gets the diagnostic receipt, because there's no paper. The receipt just goes to their inbox for the customer. But we show the customer on the tablet, everything's itemized as far as costs are involved. But our techs give a customer quote on the spot. I don't have a parts department. I don't have somebody that looks up parts. I don't have anything like that. So within our system, we have the parts manifest for every manufacturer. We mark up parts based on our costs. So we know, for example, the amount of profit we want to make on particular lines. So we know our costs for parts. Technicians give quotes on the spot because they have to look up the part they need in the system on the spot. It's done on the tablet in front of the customer. If the customer approves the approves the quote, the parts are prepaid for entirely on the spot, and the system orders the parts. Then when we come back, we just collect the rest of the labor. So we never have ourselves, we don't chase anybody. We don't have any receivables or a list of customers that we need to call to try to collect the money, because if the money's not collected, the system just doesn't move forward. The service call just stops. You get the diagnostic done, but if the customer doesn't approve the quote, it goes to undecided. Then they get a quote in their inbox, and if they want to approve it later, if they call into our office, they give the CSR the credit card number, and the system processes the part order. And then it sends the customer another email that says this is your approved quote, and the computer does all the calculations for the customer and shows the remaining balance. And so that's kind of the way we do it. We don't have a blue book. We have a minor, intermediate, and major rate, just as one of the other guys was explaining. We have seal system rate and we have a tub job rate, but that's it. There's no massive book for us to go through. So it's a little simpler that way. And technicians don't decide on what labor to charge the customer. It's all on the tablet based on what parts they're installing. And then the computer will bring up the labor rate. So technicians can't decide to charge less or charge more. They charge what the system tells them to charge.
That's awesome, Glenn. Glenn, Glenn, 2 questions. How much time do you give them to approve the repair? Is there an expiration to that?
Yeah. 30 days. There's a
30 days.
expiry date in the PDF from the quote. It tells the customer the date the quote,
Glenn, I think you're walking away from your Wi-Fi there.
Oh,
You're breaking up.
Sorry. I said if it's just a couple of days past the expiry date, we still on for the customer. We still want their business, right?
Exactly. And with your pricing tier on, as they're adding parts on the labor, you said that depending on the part they add will determine the labor. Do you do it by percentage, or do you have that, like, say you do a compressor, that's automatically $295. If you add an evaporator to that, that adds another $100. How is that tiered? How do you do that? Because I know if you do a compressor, that's still a system, but if you do an evaporator, that's still a system. If you do both together, is
right.
that?
Yeah. So if it's if we're just doing a compressor for a compressor is in the work order, or sorry, in the quote, then there's one flat rate fee. It's a seal system flat rate fee that comes up. If the technician adds an evaporator or heat exchanger, then there's a half rate subsequent seal system. So for example, the second part, let's say it's $980 to change the compressor, then the evaporator or the secondary seal system component would be half rate. So it doesn't matter which one. If we're installing 2, there's a primary rate and there's the secondary, which is half the normal rate.
Good idea. That's good.
Glenn, are you guys only taking cards, not checks or cash?
Well, the trouble here in Canada is people can write you a bad check and nothing ever happens to them. So we don't take checks. It's Visa, MasterCard, or cash, and we're pretty clear about that when the call's booked, right? It's just too dangerous for us to take a check. It can either bounce or they can just put a stop payment on it. There's nothing I can do. So don't really have a choice.
Cool. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everybody. This is awesome. I'm going to stop the recording. Doesn't mean you guys have to go anywhere. But I'm going to stop the recording and get some dinner for myself. And I just want to thank everybody for attending and participating. You know, these calls are what they are, based on what you all bring to the table. So thank you for that.